I just want to shoot this vlog real quick and kind of speak into you a little bit, just because I want to tell you guys, don't ever give up. Never, ever, ever give up. The reason that you'll hear people say that, and the reason that I'm saying that, is because success takes a lot of work, whatever it is, whatever you're working towards. If you're striving towards a certain goal, you're trying to achieve something, you're trying to get to the next level in your business, in your health, your relationships, whatever it is, you have to understand that the persistence, the action, the drive, the willingness to take action, that is what it's going to take 110% of the time. And a lot of times, if you don't see results quick enough, people today, we just have this innate desire for immediate gratifications. What happens is when some people, they don't start seeing immediate results, they get tired, they get discouraged, and they want to quit. And so I'm here to tell you, don't fucking quit. Keep going. You never know where you're going to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. If you put in the consistent work, put in the consistent effort, and it seems thankless and dauntless and tireless, sometimes you're working and putting in all this effort for nothing. And so sometimes it takes multiple iterations, a lot of time, a lot of experimentation, a lot of trying new things and consistent effort to get a result. And because we're so used to getting everything on demand as quick as possible, it's just nature doesn't always work that way, right? Nature gives you quick results, but it's never that quick. It always takes a little bit of effort. A good analogy is I have these trees that I'd planted, right? And they started to die because I didn't water them enough. And it took me a couple days of rewatering to bring it back to life, but eventually it started sprouting new flowers and new leaves. And so nature is naturally abundant and successful. But what happens is if you neglect the basics, then, you'll lose sight of what you're actually trying to achieve. And then it becomes easy to give up when you're not seeing results. So I'm here to tell you, don't give up, keep going and keep pushing, because you never know when something is going to start to finally pop, when that big payoff is going to come. Something that I've noticed from my career in real estate, I've always been a part-time real estate investor. It's an investment vehicle for me. I do other things that take up my time, and real estate, it's always sold as this passive income model, right? Buy real estate and wait and build your rental portfolio and build your cash flow. And it's a long, slow, daunting process. And there's a lot of work involved. And I kind of just hit this point recently with one of my properties where it just really finally is clicking. I had a holdover tenant that I left in there for so long, which is totally a bad idea, but I did it anyways because it enabled me to do what I wanted with the rest of the property. And just as an example, it's I could have cleaned house immediately when I bought it, cleared it out, cleaned it up, front-loaded a whole bunch of money and time and energy and success, and front-loaded a whole bunch of time and money and energy into this property, and still probably gotten the same result. And so kind of the lesson there was also, don't be afraid, go the extra mile if you need to. I played it safe and left this tenant in there. I eventually had to evict them. But now the property I'm in a whole different phase of my experience, my career in real estate. And this property is one of the best assets. It's just performing amazing. It just really worked out well. And kind of the lesson to me was, as I was reflecting on it, I started this journey so long ago, probably about 10 or 15 years ago when I started investing in real estate, and I was sold the dream of being a cash flow investor, becoming financially free. And it's just so interesting because first of all, nobody cares. There's no applause. There's no positive feedback, motivation. Nobody really cares when you're successful because most of the time, most people aren't doing much. They throw shade or they're not negative, or but ultimately they don't care, right? So it's that's hard, emotionally dealing with that process. Yes, you can find other entrepreneurs and business owners to kind of align with, which is a good idea. But ultimately, at the end of the day, nobody really cares more than you about your business and what you're doing. So this is something that you should be aware of, right? Because the other thing is that you don't want someone to say something that's going to cause you to stop and second guess yourself. I'm telling you right now, don't ever second guess yourself. Always have good advisors, have good counsel, but don't second guess yourself. when other people throw shade or say anything negative or don't support. Even just the fact of somebody not supporting you, right, can feel like, it can weigh on you. So as I was reflecting on this, it's taken me essentially 15 years to reach a point where I am meeting the criteria, the definitive criteria of being financially free, which is that your passive income exceeds your necessities or your active income. And I was thinking about, like, why did that take so long? And there's multiple reasons. Obviously, a big one is going to be lifestyle inflation, right? You start making money, you start increasing your spending, or you start having businesses, you start having more expenses. And then, it's natural that things kind of grow and expand, especially as time goes by, right? So I guess I could have said that I reached this point maybe 5 or even more years ago. But the reality is, like, to the point where I'm meeting my own standards. Don't ever let somebody tell you what your standards are. There's two sides to that. The first one is, you have plenty of money. Why do you work so hard? Why do you keep going? Like, why don't you just take a break? And then the other side is where it's just never enough, right? And so there's 3 critical things that you have to think about when you're on this journey to financial freedom and wealth, right? Number 1, you're looking at your net worth. Don't pay attention necessarily to your cash accounts. You're looking at your net worth, your assets, your income, your passive income. Number 2, you're looking at your assets, your holdings, whether it's real estate or businesses, whatever it is. And obviously you want that to be cash flow positive. You want to make sure you're managing money. You want to make sure that all those things are kind of handled properly. You have a good accountant, you're doing your taxes, you're doing all those things right and properly. And then number 3 is true financial freedom, which is by definition, like I said before, your passive income being more than your necessities or your living expenses, essentially. So you can actually be financially free and you can be poor. You can have enough money to cover your living expenses on a monthly basis and have a very low net worth. And then there's also people who can be extremely wealthy and not be financially free because their debt service and, the demands of their business, payroll, whatever it is, taking up their active income. And so they don't have enough free cash flow to put them in that category. And so it's very critical to understand those definitions, right? Understand, what does it mean to be financially free? That's your passive income more than your living expenses. What does it mean to be a millionaire? You just need $1 million net worth, and that can be cash, assets, and a lot of millionaires are actually broke because they have $1 million in assets and they only have so much income or cash flow or free cash flow, and they have a lot of expenses. All these words and all these definitions are really important to look at, because the concept of being wealthy is, first of all, wealth is relative, right? Most people associate it to money, but there's other forms of wealth. And of course, there's also multiple levels of wealth, right? So to be a millionaire, to some people, they think being a millionaire is wealthy, but to other people, being a millionaire is poor, because if you're not a multimillionaire, your net worth would be multi-millions of dollars, multiple assets. You would still have to be financially free, in my opinion, to be wealthy. You have to be financially free and you have to have a high net worth. So anyways, that's just a little bit of financial education. But the reason that I'm even talking about this is the fact that it took me so long through all this time and all this effort and all this drama and crazy situations and all this additional work where I'm just working all the time. I'm working a day job. I'm buying real estate. I'm managing rentals. I'm doing all these things. And at the end of the day, I would say, if I could go back and do it all over, I would do it completely different, because, you only have your youth for so long, right? And the amount of time that you invest in yourself, it pays good dividends, but people don't start thinking about until they reach a certain level of wealth, because in that whole process of becoming wealthy, the only thing that matters is, the objective, right? Of getting the business, buying your next business, getting the money, whatever it is. So this is a pivotal moment for me. I'm I've gone through periods of, growth and expansion and lifestyle inflation. And I've ultimately got to this point where I can say, probably unequivocally without a doubt that, I've achieved financial freedom. It's taken me a long time. There's still multiple caveats to that claim, right? You still have debt. You still have capital that has to be paid back most of the times if you have a business. And business loans or mortgages if you own real estate and things like that. Really, the point that I'm getting at here is that you never know when your effort is going to pay off. Sometimes it feels like you're just putting in time, effort, work, you're doing all these things and there's no payoff. And, it can be frustrating. It can be discouraging. But I would say that no matter what, if you're doing the right things and you're moving towards generally the right goals and the goals are positive and help people in some way and don't harm anybody, then generally you continue putting that effort and that work in, and you have no idea down the road how successful that you could actually be. So just keep doing the right thing. Keep investing in yourself, keep investing in your businesses, keep doing the right things, taking the right actions, having integrity with yourself, meaning your actions and the things that you do, think, and say are all aligned with ultimately where you're going or where you say you want to go. Because if that's out of alignment, then you're just speaking nonsense, right? So that should always be in alignment with where you're going, because you have no idea how far you can go and how successful you can be in what area. And the reality is everything is possible. The only limitation truly is you and your thinking and your ability to take actions. And then I would also say habits, because habits are kind of like concreted thoughts and actions and ways of being that you're kind of stuck in, right? So if you're not consciously aware of your own habits and breaking them down and being able to put new positive constructive habits in place, that's what trips most people up, is because it's comfortable, right? People don't like feeling uncomfortable. But if you're this successful, meaning you've built businesses, achieved some things in life, you've been uncomfortable. You have to be uncomfortable. You got to step out of your comfort zone multiple times, do things that are odd or different or weird to you. Other people might look at you like you're kind of weird or strange. Who cares? The fact is you're going to get a result if you do things the right way. There's no greater feeling in the world. So your future self will thank you. So if you were thinking about giving up in any sense of the word, I hope what I've said today in this conversation has landed in a way where you will realize you never know where your future is going to be. Your future self is waiting for you. Your future self is going to thank you. And so, don't be discouraged. Always be encouraged. Find ways. If you're feeling discouraged, by the way, find ways to get around people or listen to ideas that are encouraging to you, because someone who's negative or discouraging is just a waste of time. And if it's yourself, if it's your own self-talk, that's a whole different thing that you need to work on, and go invest in yourself and change your mind, change your thought patterns, change your thinking, by any means necessary, because I guarantee that the outcome is so much more valuable when you make those changes for yourself. You have no idea what you can accomplish. And when people finally see what you have accomplished and what you're accomplishing, they'll be scratching their heads, because the average person is not willing to put in that kind of work. So anyways, I hope this is encouraging to you, and that's what I have to share. Over all this time, all this effort, I've achieved success many times over, but to get to a certain point where I feel like I've actually made a total transformation and breakthrough. I've reached the end of this transformation and breakthrough, and now I'm on to new things, bigger horizons, better things in the future. And I have no idea where I'll be 10 years from now, but I certainly know it'll be better than the place I am now, which is also not even a bad place to be. But the fact is that you keep investing, you keep improving, and it will never really let you down. So keep putting the time in, the effort, don't be discouraged, and believe in yourself, and keep taking consistent action.